Welcome to the Imig Sports Network, broadcasting from Imig AI Studios in St. Louis, Missouri. Now, your host, Pat Imig.
Welcome into the show, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Pat Imig. It's the Pat Imig Sports Network from the Imig AI Studios. We're streaming on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, and wherever you get your podcasts from. And if you're watching this on YouTube, thank you. We appreciate you. We've got 30 subscribers now, which is pretty impressive because we started with 0, and that was just a few weeks back. So we appreciate all of you as well. Most of you seem to be NFL fans, and you'll be happy to know pro football guru Russell Baxter. He covered the NFL for 40 years, has covered the NFL for 40 years, I should say. He's still alive. He's going to be on in a few minutes. But right now, I want to talk to you about college football, specifically the University of Missouri Football Tigers. See, I am a University of Missouri journalism school graduate, so I'm an alum and a proud Tigers fan. And Eli Drinkwitz has his name floated around quite a bit for, the vacant college coaching positions. And to that, I just kind of laugh. Not because I think Eli's a bad guy, but when I look at the facts and the data, this guy would not last at LSU or Florida. Now, he still may go there. I don't know. After November 29th, who knows? I think he's going to stay at Mizzou because I think deep down he knows that his coaching and his press conferences and his explanations would not work in a more hostile environment. So consider the following, that after losing to Texas A&M, the University of Missouri football team under Eli Drinkwitz, 0-6 against ranked SEC teams in the last 2 seasons. So not only are they not winning those big games, they're also 1-10 all-time under Drinkwitz against top 10 teams. The only victory for Mizzou in the last 2 seasons against a ranked opponent, as in top 25, was a victory over Boston College in the start of the 2024 season. They finished 7-6. They were ranked 24th at the time. So the last 2 years, that's the only top 25 victory for Mizzou. Not only that, they're 7-17 all-time under Drink versus ranked teams. I mentioned the 1-10 record. And most important, probably, in SEC play, they're 24-23 under Drink. That's not necessarily progress. When you take away all the cupcake victories, really, Mizzou's football program is in purgatory. Now, that's not to say that Drinkwitz didn't improve things. He took over Barry Odom's program. He's one hell of a hype man. He's one hell of a recruiter. His players love playing for him, but there's a lack of discipline on game day. There's a lack of evolution of the offensive game planning from Kirby Moore. Really, the root of the problem to me is that offensive game planning. I don't think that removing Drinkwitz is the answer. Number one, he's a great recruiter. Number two, he's kind of built the program up. We've got great facilities. We've got renovations coming, but he needs an offensive coordinator who's going to attack and evolve on game day. And right now, that's not happening at the University of Missouri. So here's Eli Drinkwitz after the game, a 38-17 shellacking at the hands of Texas A&M.
Yeah, they're good teams. They're good teams. And I don't do a good enough job coaching.
Over the past 2 years, Missouri.
Yeah, he needs to do a better job of coaching. And this is really the year that they had a shot at a college football playoff berth, with it being a 12-team league. I think that's too many, and that's a conversation for another day. But it does make it exciting for fans, right? But next season, 26 and 2027, Mizzou's football schedule, way tougher. Georgia, Texas, Oklahoma, LSU, Ole Miss. It's the SEC gauntlet. And if things don't improve, it's going to be a long SEC season next year for Mizzou. And really, if they would just focus on what brought them to the dance with their running backs, things would be a lot better. Here was what Drinkwitz said after the game when it was brought to his attention that Ahmad Hardy just had 3 touches in the first half for Mizzou.
I mean, he finished with 13 carries for 114 yards. So, there's other players out there, I guess. So there's things that Jamal does really well. He's a really good player, and so.
Wow. Yeah. So I would like Drinkwitz to start watching Philadelphia Eagles games because sometimes they take their star running back, Saquon Barkley, and their second and third running backs and put them all on the field together. That's actually how you can fool the defense. I also think if you go up tempo and do no huddle, that would have fooled the defense at least for a drive against Texas A&M. You know what's not going to fool a defense in the SEC like Texas A&M? A scheduled, planned play where your true freshman quarterback looks to the sidelines as if he's trying to figure out what the play is and then does a quick snap to try to catch the defense off guard. That seems to be the only thing that Mizzou came up with during their bye week. And Texas A&M, they're a great team, so let's just give them the credit too. But the fact is they knew what plays were coming, and that's not my opinion. That's coming from Caden Green, Mizzou's offensive lineman.
I feel like they made some good adjustments. They started to kind of key on what we were doing, call out plays at the line. So, it just is what it is. A few times I think they were starting to get reads on like formations and stuff.
So there you have it. If you are a Mizzou fan, again, I don't think that they should fire Drinkwitz because who are you going to replace with him? I think that he has built the program up enough that if he were to leave on his own, which still could happen because college football is crazy, I do think that whoever comes in, assuming they're an ass kicker of a coach and a disciplinarian, I think that they can take what Drink started with the recruitment. They'd probably lose Zollers. We'd probably lose Ahmad Hardy. But the fact is, Mizzou lacks discipline, and they lack good coaching against quality opponents on game day. And in the SEC, whether it's the SEC, whether it's the Big Ten, and maybe even a little bit of the Big 12 right now, because they're kind of surging as a conference, you got to improve. And it's been the same old story. This is a head coach who, he seems like he's got a great personality. His players love to play for him. But when you are asked if, it bothers you that your defensive players continue to get taunting penalties and, unsportsmanlike penalties, and you say no, that's kind of weird, because I look back at the Zion Young penalty against Alabama, the taunting call. Alabama's first drive, Mizzou had already marched down the field and scored. That, to me, that penalty changed the complexion of the entire season, and I'll die on that hill. If you're not a Mizzou fan, now you have a little insight and intel on Ahmad Hardy, on Eli Drinkwitz. I feel better now. Appreciate you guys listening. Coming up next, we're going to talk NFL Week 11 with pro football guru Russell Baxter, 40-plus years covering the league. That's going to be right after this. But right now, let's watch a gentleman, a fan of the University of Missouri, rant and rave like a Neanderthal. And this fan is actually me on Saturday. What about just doing no huddle and just having 3 scripted run plays? Back to back. See what happens. Catch them off guard. That's how you catch a defense off guard. You don't catch them off guard by making your true freshman quarterback think for longer in the pocket and in the huddle and looking across at the sideline and trying to outsmart the defense with a fake snap. That's actually a snap. I don't even know how to describe it, because this is the shit that Mizzou's offense does consistently against the SEC the last 2 years. So if you're going to fail, at least fail attacking and being aggressive and being common sense and up-tempo and fast. Don't fail because you're just kind of like trying different things. Do we not have a screen pass? Do we not have bootleg rollouts?
You are watching the Pat Imig Sports Network. Follow along at your favorite social media channel at GETPISN.
Get pissing. Get. Go on and get. Some people ask ChatGPT their football questions. We ask the guru, pro football guru Russell Baxter, on the Pat Imig Sports Network. Some people use ChatGPT. We always rely on the pro football guru, Russell Baxter. He's covered the NFL for 40-plus years, over 2 decades at ESPN, and you can follow him on X at Bax Football Guru. And we've got an unbelievable slate of games for NFL Week 11, which we'll get into here in just a second, Russell. But let's start with kind of a theme that we have organically, I guess, cultivated on the show the last couple of weeks, just discussing organizations that from the top down aren't doing their job and you're seeing it on the field. So the most recent example, Monday, Brian Daboll fired by the Giants. Before we even get into ownership and the GM, it's not something that you probably know the direct answer to because it's a guess on both of our parts. But do you think Daboll was fired because Jackson Dart got injured, or because they just lost the game? Because there's some people that are putting that on the coach too. I don't know if you watched that game, but they had a fourth and goal. They're up 20-10, I think, or 17-10. And instead of going for a touchdown, they kick a field goal, which you just knew that was going to bite them. And to me, it's like, you're 2-7. Why aren't you going for W's? I understand they didn't have their quarterback in, but that's a lot of info I just threw at you. But if they win that game, he's probably still head coach, correct?
Yeah, I think so. I think maybe the worst thing that happened to Brian Daboll this year was blowing out the Philadelphia Eagles on a Thursday night at MetLife Stadium.
Interesting.
I think all that did was elevate what expectations were. I mean, they pushed around the Eagles. The Eagles have lost 2 games this year. That Denver game where they gave up all those points in the fourth quarter. But the Thursday night Giants game, they were in it for a bit, but they really had no answers for the Giants whatsoever. And I think that's it. Well, hey, this is what we can be. And nope. And you combine the fact that, when he first got there, you remember they were a playoff team.
Right.
Not only a playoff team, won a playoff game, beat the Vikings in Minnesota. And it's kind of been downhill ever since. Now, when your organization makes HBO history, per se, the whole Saquon Barkley drama, the whole Daniel Jones, we gave Daniel Jones the money.
Right.
Eventually, they parted ways with him anyway. What's he doing right now? Oh, never mind. Colts have the best, tied for the best record in the AFC. Saquon Barkley not only left, he had one of the most magical seasons by a running back in the history of the National Football League. From stem to stern. And how can you not be a little embarrassed? I guess I'm a little surprised Joe Shane is still there.
Yeah, I think that's where I'm at.
Right. Yeah. The organization in general. And, we talked about that last week with Chris Greer.
Right.
Who's making decisions. And Chris Greer was there an awful long time. The team wasn't getting any better. They hadn't won a playoff game since 2000. Still haven't. For the Giants, they won a playoff game 3 years ago. But I think the combination of that and the Eagles win and just some flashes on occasion, I think then seeing what's happened the last couple of weeks of blowing these leads led to his demise.
So I was looking at, the list of head coaches for the Giants from since Tom Coughlin left, which is kind of funny because we discussed Tom Coughlin last week. So he leaves in 2015 or after the 2015 season. And then I literally just forgot about these guys like Ben McAdoo, Joe Judge, Pat Shurmur. So I do think that they got it right as far as going offensive. I do feel like in today's NFL, I think just by the numbers, probably the more successful teams have offensive-minded coaches. Obviously not all. I think Seattle's a great example right now of that not being the case. But
Right.
but nothing worked out. So at some point, don't you just have to look at the general manager, right? Just as Miami did.
Well, the organization from top to bottom, I think that's what they have to do. And, they've made some good picks, but, when you give away, the whole Saquon Barkley thing bothered me because, first off, he was, I believe, Offensive Rookie of the Year. I know there were some injury issues. I understand that. But to lowball him the way they did and put the tag on him and just kind of let him go away. There were 3 running backs in the same year, Pat, that got the tag and then left. Saquon Barkley, Josh Jacobs with the Raiders. I think he's doing okay.
Yeah.
And probably not superstar, but he's had a decent year and a half in Tennessee, and that's Tony Pollard. So those organizations had a chance to lock those guys up and didn't do it.
I'm grinning because Tony Pollard, that would have been the Cowboys, correct?
Yes.
And they also gave up the gentleman we talked about last week in Carolina because they didn't want to pay him. Is that correct?
Yeah. And Carolina got him for that's the thing. Carolina got him for $2.75 million on a 1-year deal. Now, if they want to keep him, they're going to have to re-up now. But no matter how you slice it, that's been an unbelievable bargain. Although, as I was writing just shortly about the Panthers and their roller coaster season, will the real Carolina Panthers please stand up? Please stand up. Please stand up.
And you are a big Slim Shady fan.
I said, and my next line was, "There's something shady about Dave Canales' team."
Oh, so. I just ruined it.
That's fine. That's
So,
fine. 13 people will enjoy it. So
that's right. Well, I have. It's not even a theory. I guess it is a theory because you can't physically prove it with data. But if you look at last week, the Carolina loss was a surprise, but they're coming off a big win against Green Bay, so like they have a big win hangover. The Buffalo Bills have their biggest win of the year against the Chiefs and then just lay an absolute egg in Miami, big win hangover. I mean, I think there's something to that.
Well, there's no question about it. And also throw in the fact that there's no one great in this league right now. Okay? We have 2 hot teams in the NFC West. Okay? New England is very good. I'm not ready to put them great yet, and that's not a knock because I think Mike Vrabel. I mean, they've won 8 games this year. The previous two seasons combined, they won 8 games. So, and going into Tampa and beating the Bucs, and going into Buffalo and beating the Bills, there's a lot to be said for that. So, but we haven't seen like someone really jump off the charts and dominate. Maybe that's the better word. There hasn't been a dominant team this year, and the Eagles are just hanging around and tied for the best record in the NFC. And we have this Seattle and Rams game this week, which both teams have 4 wins in a row. Both teams are 7-2. And Sunday night, after we take that in, we had the Lions at the Eagles, who that game speaks for itself, to say the least. So that's what we talk about. This is a very pivotal week, a lot of divisional games, and it's not week 18 as far as all divisional games. There's a lot of divisional games and just a lot of intriguing. In fact, Tampa Bay and Buffalo. That's something to keep an eye on as well. So
hold that thought. We'll transition. We'll take a quick little break, and then when we get back, we're going to get into your analysis on some of those prime games. You mentioned Buffalo and Tampa Bay. We've also got the NFC West matchup, and you're covering Seattle, correct, on SI. So I'm eager to hear your thoughts on that team. And we'll get into the Lions, Eagles as well. And then Chiefs, Broncos. It's going to be a great Sunday of football. So we'll get into that right after this.
You are watching the Pat Imig Sports Network. Follow along at your favorite social media channel at GETPISN.
Get pissing. Get. Go on and get. So before we get into the NFC West battle, the earliest of the quote-unquote prime games, Russell, we have the Buffalo Bills, Tampa Bay Bucs. The Bills are interesting because we talked earlier about how they laid an egg in Miami. Maybe they had a big win hangover after Kansas City. Miami just ran the ball down their throat. So that's shades of the early season Bills that you were documenting for us. So what's going to happen with them and the Bucs? I mean, the Bucs are still injured. You can tell that their offense is like kind of sputtering, not for lack of effort. I don't think it's just they don't have all their manpower, but I got to feel like they're going to try to run the ball a lot more than maybe typically after watching that Miami game.
I don't think there's any question about it. I think if you're going to, you accomplish 3 things when you run. You wear down the other team, you control time of possession, and you keep the opposing quarterback on the sidelines. And for Josh Allen last week, him staying on the sidelines might have been a good idea. Very sloppy with the ball. Again, this is like 5 or 6 games. It's one of the more remarkable stats if you think about it. Last year, including the playoffs, the Bills played 20 games and turned over the ball 8 times. In their first 3 games this year, they turned over the ball 0 times. And all 8 of those were by Josh Allen. Okay. Nobody else on the team committed in turnover in a 23-game stretch.
Wow.
I mean, that's wild. And 8 turnovers in a season by a team ties the NFL record set by the Saints in 2019. In a 16-game season, the Bills managed to do it in a 17-game season. But that's all, lack of a better word, gone to hell the last 5 or 6 weeks. Even when they played the Saints, there came the first turnover. We saw them very sloppy with the ball against the Dolphins, a Dolphins team that I think everybody just said, well, we're packing it in, whatever. And considering the lack of success that Miami's had against Buffalo since McDermott got here, that was not only a super shocker, but 30-13 was a mega shocker. And there's a lot of teams that have been able to have, I mean, even opening week when they rallied to beat the Ravens, Derrick Henry went nuts running against them. The Saints at the time winless, and they ran up big numbers.
And that was in Buffalo too, wasn't it?
Huh? That was in Buffalo, yes.
Yeah.
So if you can't stop the run, you can't stop much of anything. And even the Dolphins made their share of mistakes in that game and still won comfortably. So there's some soul searching that has to go on there because their dominance in the AFC East. I mean, they were already behind the 8 ball to begin with against New England. The Miami loss is another divisional loss. They lost to New England at home. I'm not saying they're not going to make the playoffs, but I know this, barring a tie, Tampa Bay or Buffalo is going to be 6-4 and bunched up with a lot of other teams.
So that's the early of our favorite 4 games. We've got the Chiefs and Broncos, also AFC West. Both teams coming off of a bye, correct? Is that right? No, did Denver play on Thursday night? That's right.
Yes, Denver in an offensive explosion against the Raiders won 10-7. By the way, I got to throw this out. We began week 10 with a 10-7 game at Denver, and we ended the week with a 10-7 game at Lambeau Field. That just
and
weird.
One was way less exciting, and that was the Thursday night game.
Well, the Denver Raiders game set football back a few years. I mean,
that was tough. Still better than no football, but it was tough. So, one thing I came to the conclusion watching that game from the Denver standpoint is Bo Nix still has a lot of work to do. That doesn't mean he's not going to get better or improve. He's still not even in 2 full seasons in. So throw that out there. But there's still some balls he just misses completely. There's still receivers who are open that he doesn't see. And then, just kind of he looked kind of frantic in the pocket, even when there weren't
I agree with that,
really
yes.
rushing. So I don't know, their defense, I wouldn't want to go up against them. They've got the great pass rush. They've got a bunch of playmakers, but I feel like Kansas City is equipped to handle them because I think both defenses can kind of cancel each other out. And I think when it comes down to the offenses, I'm going to go Mahomes and Andy Reid coming off of a bye, which I think historically he's one of the best ones to do that, isn't he?
Yes, he is. And this to me is a very pivotal game for the Chiefs, who in their own division certainly can't afford to slip to 5-5.
That would be crazy to think about, actually. It's almost like they have to win.
Well, listen, there's 7 teams getting the playoffs now, so on. But we're used to seeing the Chiefs win the division. They've won the division every year since 2016. Okay? It's one of the longest runs in NFL history. They've been in the playoffs every year since 2015. They make the playoffs this year, they'll tie the Patriots all-time record, 11 straight years in the playoffs. But I go back to the Jacksonville game with them when their defense was so-so. I go back to the Buffalo game with them when a lot of people, not everybody, made such a deal about, Mahomes was under pressure. They lose when he's under pressure. But the Bills chunk plays left and right. Dalton Kincaid, James Cook. It wasn't like Kansas City's defense was up to its reputation. So this
Right.
is a golden opportunity for Denver, and this is Bo Nix can't afford to be nervous. Let's put it that way.
I think that's a good way to put it.
Right.
Could be a long day otherwise. So if for some reason, if somehow the Broncos win this game, there's never any guarantees in the NFL, obviously,
No,
but
not this year, especially.
the history definitely leads to Kansas City being the favorite for this game. But if the Denver does somehow manage to pull it out, I mean, they're one of the most, and this isn't insulting, but they're one of the most non-dominant 9-2 teams I can think of in the last handful of years, because you really don't know what you're getting with them. Sometimes their offense is lights out and Nix makes these unbelievable throws, and other times they do what they did Thursday, that Week 10 Thursday game against the Raiders.
Well, we saw them with, they waited and waited and waited and did nothing until the fourth quarter against the Eagles and handed the Eagles their first loss. They waited and waited and waited and did nothing to the fourth quarter and beat the Giants on some spectacular plays and fell behind, fell behind, et cetera, et cetera. They got the missed PAT help, field goal win. So they've been resourceful. But I know Sean Payton's probably used to a cleaner game than he has seen from his team. And, Sean Payton had a very good opportunistic defense the year the Saints won the Super Bowl in 2009. This is a more physical defense. They led the league in sacks last year. They're leading the league in sacks this year. They've got some star players, the two former 49ers that came over. And there's a different sense when they're on the field. You never got the sense the Raiders, who I believe opened that game and took a 7-0 lead last week. Once Denver kind of kicked in, you couldn't even tell if the Raiders were going to get another first down.
Yeah.
To be honest with you, that's how dominant and how pushy they can be. And if that Chiefs line isn't up to snuff, they're going to have another rough day. And I mean Kansas City. So
the other West, NFC West, we've got an amazing game of 2-7-2 teams, Rams, Seahawks. For those who want to read more up on Seattle, you can read Russell's work on SI. And I'm not saying, I think both of these teams are outstanding. I think the Rams, they have it on offense, they have it on defense. I'm still not sold on their special teams. They did just add the thicker kicker, Harrison Mevis. Mm-hmm. Shout out Mizzou, who hopefully they forgive me after my rant on Saturday. I did go there, so I can do that. That's fair. I got a journalism degree from Mizzou. So, but Harrison Mevis, they have a kicker now. I always feel like Seattle, no matter how good they are, they don't actually get as much credit as they should. For whatever reason, it seems about 70 to 80% of media or just even fans think the Rams are the best team in the West versus Seattle. And I'm not saying that one or the other is not that. What I'm saying is Seattle just always seems to kind of get overlooked. So I know that Darnold's the quarterback. We talked about his not amazing performance against the Rams last year in the playoffs before. But the defense for Seattle, to me, is kind of the untold story. So what can you tell us about that?
Well, listen, we saw them in full gear last week. It almost looked like an instant replay with the strip sack and DeMarcus Lawrence picking up the ball and running it in for a touchdown. But he actually did it twice. And, he
scored more points than the Packers and the Eagles and the Broncos and the Raiders.
Absolutely. And that's what Seattle can do to you now. Last year they were an emerging defensive team. They started out okay. They went through a really rough 6-game stretch, swung a deal and got Ernest Jones from the Titans, who I'll never understand why the Rams traded him to Tennessee to begin with. Such a good player. And that kind of changed their mentality. They won 6 of their last 8 games, but they missed the playoffs, even though they were 10-7. The one thing that still bothers me about this Seattle team is Sam Darnold. Now, they're up big, and he fumbles, and he gives the Cardinals a short field. And then he throws the ball off someone's helmet, and the Cardinals get a short field. So the game again, remember, when they beat the Texans on Monday night, he got sacked in the end zone, and that was Houston's only touchdown in that game. So there are still remnants of Sam Darnold, and he's with a team this year that has dramatically improved its pass protection, which was not the case the last time Sam Darnold saw the Rams.
Right.
In the playoffs, he got sacked 9 times, strip sack, he had a fumble return for a touchdown. This is revenge. Remember, the Vikings were 14-3 in the regular season last year, and then they were 1-out in the playoffs. The Vikings only lost to 2 teams last year. They lost to the Lions twice, and they lost to the Rams twice. So lo and behold, in case Sam Darnold didn't check, the Rams are in this division, and they'll play each other. I mean, the Seahawks end the season with San Francisco, just like beginning. I guess it would be more fun. Maybe the NFL can flex that game all the way like 5 weeks later and make it the last game of the season. But this ought to be fun. They're both playing at a high level. Matthew Stafford has been amazing. Not
pretty
making
crazy
mistakes.
what he's doing.
Yeah, not making mistakes.
Right.
Spreading the ball around. Devontae Adams has been a gravity. For people who haven't really followed Devontae Adams, which I think is impossible, he has climbed his way up the all-time leaders in terms of total touchdowns, receptions, receiving yards. And it's something I track on a weekly basis. And he is, him and Mike Evans were the guys. Mike Evans, unfortunately, might come back at the end of the year. Derrick Henry, a bunch of guys late last year that cracked the 100 touchdown club. And Devontae Adams just keeps on keeping on.
And he has a Taco Bell in his house, according to the TV commercial.
Very, very good quarterback, and this will be interesting. Now, it's hard to ignore the fact that, take it for what it's worth, Seattle has won 10 straight road games. So, which tells me that they struggle at home, Pat. That's the funny thing. So,
I was going to say, had they solved that, I feel like they've gotten a couple of wins. I mean, this past week 10, they won at home, correct?
Right.
Yeah.
Yes, but funny enough, their only 2 losses this year were to the Niners at home and Buccaneers at home. So, and that Buccaneers game was another Darnold late, throw the ball off someone's helmet, pick off, Bucs kick a field goal, they lose 38-35. But, and listen, it's Mike Macdonald. We saw what he did in his second year with the Ravens. They gave up the fewest points in the league. They had the most sacks. They were tied for the most takeaways. And that's what he's doing with this team. The Seahawks drafted 11 players this year. Only 2 of them were on offense. I mean, on defense. Only 2 defensive guys in the whole draft. It was 9 players on offense. And their offense is better. Jackson Smith-Njigba having a monster year. Torrey Horton. And, eventually they'll get Rashid Shaheed into the mix. If they keep... And I think they had a season high in rushing yards this week against Arizona. So balanced team, explosive team, Clint Kubiak's offense. That was another reason Darnold wanted to come there. They were together in San Francisco on a short basis, 1 year. So this will be fun. And we know it'll be a fast track at SoFi Stadium where it is.
So yeah, I don't want to be a cynic, but if the game isn't a blowout, which I don't think it will be, right, I'm just gonna have like almost like a Darnold watch and be like, midway through the third quarter, if it's 1 possession game or even a 10-point game, I'm gonna wait for something something that happens that just makes you go, come on. But we'll see.
Well, I think you're spot on because I don't think the Rams have. I've heard them say they have a great defense. I think they have a great pass rushing defense.
Right.
Okay, I think you can move the ball on them if you get time. I think you can run the ball on them. The numbers indicate that you do.
So we'll cap off Sunday with the Lions and Eagles. The Lions got revenge for the last year's loss to the Commanders in the playoffs with their dismantling of them, at least offensively, in Week 10. Dan Campbell now calling the plays for Detroit. To me, this is a game that I need to see Detroit win it because I would love to see them get to the Super Bowl because why not? They haven't been there in forever, if ever. Have they ever been there?
Well, Pat, they're the only team in the NFC that's never been to the Super Bowl.
Yeah, so there you go. So they're like the Buffalo Bills. I mean, I know the Bills have been to the Super Bowl, but they've never won a Super Bowl, obviously. Yeah, so I need to see the Lions win this game because I would love to see that happen just from a football fan standpoint. And I also always enjoy watching them play because of the offense. But even Sunday, even in Week 10, their defense is still kind of, I don't know, it's kind of hiccupy. So what do you make of all of this with the Eagles and the Lions?
I think this one falls on Philadelphia's defense, okay? Because Detroit has, other than the Kansas City game, which they moved the ball, but I think still only wound up with 17 points. Same thing with the Week 1 loss to the Packers. The loss at home to Minnesota is the one that's perplexing to me, and
for Detroit,
that backs up what you talked about. This is, Aiden Hutchinson is back, and again, good pass rushers, but can be had. But I think there's a confidence level with them that we can score on anybody. And who's to argue? I mean, last year they led the league in points. They had, I want to say 564 was either the fourth or fifth highest total in NFL history. And it amounted to a playoff loss because if you can't stop the other team and you turn over the ball, you're in trouble. But this is a very intriguing matchup. And it might be one of those games where you see Devontae Smith, who just, what a knack for the clutch he has.
He's
saw that.
He's really becoming, to steal a basketball analogy, he's like big shot Robert Horry. I don't know if you remember that name from back in the day.
Oh, of course. Was he at like 7 NBA titles?
Yeah, and just, it's time to hit a three, and, it's a big moment in the game, go to him. So,
well, because we're so quarterback centric in the sport of football, I'm sure it's forgotten or not known by some people that Devontae Smith is actually a Heisman Trophy winner.
Right. Which was that 2020?
No, 2020 was a talk show with Hugh Downs and Barbara Walters.
That's right. On 2020 Friday. Can we cue a laughter there somewhere? Well, we'll add the laugh track to that. That was good. You zinged me on that one.
I try.
Hey, so I want to make sure I ask this. We're talking about the Eagles anyway. Monday night in Green Bay, it's 4th and 8 with 90 seconds to go, and Sirianni throws the ball. The Eagles throw the ball, and it's an incomplete pass. And it was all precipitated by the fact that on the front end of the 2-minute warning, on a 2nd down and 3rd down, they threw passes that were incomplete. So if they had just run once, they probably would have killed one of those timeouts of Green Bay. But was that as egregious as I thought it was, going for it the way they did on 4th and 8?
I thought it was mystifying. And if I was going to have some fun, we could have some fun with AJ Brown, because obviously he's been very outspoken about, not getting the football and so on. And I'm having a flashback from Hoosiers where Gene Hackman called one play and Jimmy Chitwood said, "I'll make it," even though the play wasn't for him.
Recording
so I can see
stopped.
AJ Brown. I see AJ Brown talking to Jalen Hurts and saying, "I'll catch it." And it was actually a very good defensive play. But why they called that, I'll never. And they made life very miserable for themselves.
I mean, if you're on that defense too, they've been foot to the pedal for 60 minutes, for 59 minutes, and you got to go back out there because your coach And it wasn't like they were close to midfield too. I think mystifying is the best word to describe it.
It would have been, to me, it had the same effect, Pat, as trying to kick a field goal from there.
Yeah.
And if you miss it, you give them the ball right there. And I didn't understand it at all because for the most part, I mean, Jordan Love in his defense wasn't great last night, but he did make a couple of nice third down throws. Okay. And remember, on third down, looked like they were buried in their own territory. And he had that connection over the middle. So why I didn't understand it at all. And now you do understand why Nick Sirianni does get his share of people questioning some of the decision making, even though he's won a Super Bowl and taken the team there too of the last 3 years.
Yeah, mystifying is correct.
Russ, the PFG versus Chat GPT.
I'm glad you said New York Giants football player because I was going to throw Willie Mays out there.
Right.
Just for the hell of it. But I mean, he changed the game.
I would have thrown Andre the Giant in there too.
I like that. That. Willie McCovey. Lawrence Taylor. His impact was immediate. Last player, defensive player to be named league MVP, Hall of Famer. And really the reason, it's never been officially discussed, really the reason that the league started counting individual sacks. Okay, they started that in 1982. Lawrence Taylor's rookie season was 1981. Coincidence? I don't think so. And now other guys have gone back and documented sacks going all the way back to 1960. But that was just a sack was a team stat. It wasn't an individual stat. And then all of a sudden, Lawrence Taylor showed up, and he was compiling them. But it was not just the sacks; it was the ferocity in which he played with, throwing a quarterback, grabbing a quarterback, and throwing him down with one arm. The strip sacks.
Also, arguably one of the greatest video game characters of all time. I don't know if you're familiar with Tecmo Bowl on the original Nintendo, but that was the only reason to be the New York Giants was to make sure you could block you could block every extra point with Lawrence Taylor. It was crazy. That's how fast he was.
Oh.
All right, number 2, Russell, what do you got?
Emlyn Tunnell, defensive
Never
back.
heard of him.
Second in NFL history in interceptions with 79. Didn't play his entire career. The majority of his career with the Giants. I think he had a stint at the end of his career with the Packers. But 79 picks. We always talk about Paul Krause. No one's going to get to 81. Well, I don't think anybody's going to get to 70, frankly, or even 60, just because of the way the game's played. Outstanding player in every regard. The Giants have a lot of Pro Football Hall of Famers because this is a franchise, including their Super Bowls, that's won 8 NFL titles, which is the third most in NFL history.
So ChatGPT says that the second greatest New York Giants player of all time is Eli Manning.
Well, this ought to be interesting. I'm trying to look down, and I don't think. Never mind. I won't even say. Oh, he's not in my top 5. Okay, but that's all right.
Number 3, who do you got?
Number 3 is another defensive guy, and in an era where the middle linebacker was the star for defenses. And you don't really see that many pure middle linebackers anymore. There's a lot of 3-4s. There's a lot of 5-2s, or I should say 4-2-5s that teams play. Sam Huff, if you're doing a top 10 list of middle linebackers, Bill George, Dick Butkus, Ray Nitschke, Jack Lambert, Sam Huff, then you get more modern with Brian Urlacher and Mike Singletary and so on. But Sam Huff was kind of a star in New York. And it's hard to ignore his accomplishments on some very good Giants defenses.
So surprisingly, ChatGPT agrees with you. At least they've got him at number 5. And I only say surprisingly because I feel like ChatGPT is has a recency bias because it's all curated based off of things that have been written online. But yeah, Sam Huff is listed here. 5-time Pro Bowler, 1950s All-Decade Team. And then this makes me like him right away. I'm going to have to look him up. His role in the Giants' defensive dominance and as featured on the, quote, violent world of Sam Huff.
Yes.
So he was not a soft
very
tackler.
Imposing. Very, very imposing player. And you know me, I do my countdowns up into the season. So on every Hall of Famer is in there. So you'll see some Sam Huff stats and some pictures
Nice.
down the line.
Number 4.
Another oldie but goodie. But just because what he brought to the organization as overall, and he was just a solid football player, and that's Frank Gifford. We have, dual threat, known more obviously for his work on Monday Night Football and his wife, Kathy Lee, but an outstanding football player. And, the Giants franchise, again, which has won a lot of titles, probably more known for defense than it is necessarily offense. Phil Simms obviously had a terrific career. Commander to Super Bowl, was the Super Bowl MVP. You talked about Eli Manning, his longevity, I think. He had 2 playoff runs. In 2007, they won 4 games. They were a wild card. 2011, they were a 9-7 divisional champion. Won it. And every other year the Giants were in the playoffs with Eli Manning, they were one and done. So he made the most of 2 years. And I think eventually he'll get in the Hall of Fame. Again, more based on longevity, because the only guy, if I remember right, the only guy who ever knocked Eli Manning out of a game was Ben McAdoo, his coach.
Really?
Yeah. He benched him, and I think, if I remember right, that cost Ben McAdoo his job with the organization. I'm going to be. Who do you have
at number 5?
I'm going to be a little more modern, but I'm still going to stick on defense, and I'm going to go Michael Strahan. Again, another guy who brought it every week. Went out as a winner. Super Bowl 42 was his final game. You remember him standing on the sidelines and, we're going to win this game, and they did, and it was one of the great upsets in NFL history. I think some people make far too much out of the whole Brett Favre sack record thing with him, but he was a relentless guy. And I think he was, he changed Tom Coughlin. Tom Coughlin was very much a disciplinarian. I know you've heard the stories, the meetings at 9. If you're not there at 8:45, you're late. Okay. I'm exaggerating a little, but Tom Coughlin was maybe too much of a disciplinarian. I'm not knocking what he did. 2 franchises in Jacksonville, and we don't even count, even talking about his college work. But I think Michael Strahan was a consummate team player. He looked out for the players on his team, the tone of the locker room. His sack totals, his defensive totals speak for themselves.
So ChatGPT agrees with you as far as him being on the list. He's ranked at number 3. So really the only discrepancies between PFG and GPT is that at number 2, GPT says Eli Manning, and you said, and repeat his name again because I need to.
Emlen Tennell.
Emlen Tennell at number 2.
EMLEN Tennell.
So we're going to award today's battle. We're going to award it to Russell because I feel like Eli Manning shouldn't be at number 2 on this list. Maybe he should be in top 5, but definitely not at 2. And then you guys aligned on so much other stuff. So congratulations, Russell Baxter. You've won this week's edition of PFG versus GPT. We have some nice party gifts for you.
Well, let me see. Let me quote Glenn Ross. First place is the El Dorado. Second place is a set of steak knives. Third place is you're fired. Is that how it works?
That's how it works. There's only 2 places on this, so you have job security. That's the Pro Football Guru. I'm Pat Imig. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll catch everybody next time. Make sure you get all of your podcasts from the Pat Imig Sports Network on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, and wherever you enjoy podcasts. Also, check out the video on YouTube. you're watching it right now, perhaps. Russell, thanks again.
You got it, Pat.
Thanks for watching the Pat Imig Sports Network, powered by Imig.ai. For exclusive sports content and clips you can't find anywhere else, follow along on social media at Get Pissin'.
Every single night, from the tip off to the touchdown, I break it down. Sports talk royalty, I wear the crown. Dynasties rise, legacies never fall. Every win got a story, I tell it all. Last minute buzzer beaters, ice in the vein. Post game speeches and champagne rain. From the World Cup heat to the Super Bowl lights, calling plays in the zone. Open up your eyes, Imig Sports Network, dropping value like clockwork. If you really want insight, get it right. Watch the videos every single night. Pat Imig Sports Network, dropping value like clockwork. If you really want insight, get it right. Watch the videos every single night. Talking MVPs, yeah, I see the vision. Grinding for the chip, this is more than a mission. Trade talks, headlines, locker room vibes. Breaking news quicker than a 40-yard time guide. Eyes on the court, hard in the ring. Every athlete's journey, I let that sing. Olympic gold to college ball pride. If it's clutch, I got it covered worldwide. Pat Imig Sports Network, dropping value like clockwork. If you really want insight, get it right. Watch the videos every single night. Pat Imig Sports Network, dropping value like clockwork. If you really want insight, get it right. Watch the videos every single night. Lights on, game on, no cap when the game's strong. Underdogs to the Hall of Fame, every win got a name. That Imig Sports Network, dropping value like clockwork. If you really want insight, get it right. Watch the videos every single night. Pat Imig Sports Network, dropping value like clockwork. If you really want insight, get it right. Watch the videos every single night.